I'm out of the loop anyway. Oh, here we go. See how easy it is to share things. Bruce was just telling me how scared he is of Hubert Davis and how he was.
He needs to be.
Walter could
He better be.
Walter Davis. Now that's a Davis.
Yeah.
It's all right.
It's in the bloodline. It's okay.
Walter could go.
Did you just do stuff? Were you doing stuff with Ole Miss all weekend, Bryant?
Ole Miss and Arkansas.
Ole Miss and what do they get at those Arkansas games? They get like 10,000 people at those games too?
There was a lot more people at the Ole Miss game, though.
I was going to say.
It was packed. Not one mask in sight, bro.
Yeah, of course not. Because we don't need no stinking government tell us what to do. I was driving back, and there were lines like the government put on the road to tell me what lane to stay in. I said, fuck that. Fuck that.
You just went off on those dirt roads and you just went through pastures and shit. Good
don't tell me where I need to stay, you sons of bitches.
Well, now there's a recording studio in the same parking lot as the Blind Tiger. And so we've had two or three big parties that have drawn every college kid in a pair of cut-off jean shorts in America.
You know, I love that bar, and it's a great place to see a show, but those guys have been fucking up. Those guys are pissing me off.
It was just like they were pulling they were having to tow cars all over the streets.
Yeah.
Police were everywhere. The first night of WrestleMania, they did it, and then they tried to blame it on the Blind Tiger, and then the Blind Tiger the next night had 300 people in that little building, like the next night. So anyway, it's been.
It's going to be that. There's going to be irrational exuberance throughout the entire summer.
Yeah, it's amazing, and I don't trust it at all.
And that's going to make my professional life way more interesting than it should be, especially around your neck of the woods.
Yeah, I can. Yeah,
it's going to make it way more interesting than it needs to be. All right, I give you the big introduction like I used to. He is the senior columnist for adfreeshows.com for more than 25 minutes. He is.
Yo, man. Oh, man.
You missed us. You know you missed us.
I had the podcast. I had the longest running weekly podcast of anybody, and then I had to go and
Yeah, I used to make six figures too, but shit changes, man.
Shit
changes in a heartbeat. You seem to be particularly professionally satisfied right now, putting out some pretty good work at Ad Free Shows. Tell me about all that stuff and how that's going right now.
Well, I'm really kind of building myself back up, Conrad. Conrad, as you know, you come hang with us some at the Fan Fest before we started podcast, but has been really supportive. And I did 9 WrestleMania columns in the week before WrestleMania, like full-length columns. I've never written that much before. And that really got me up and running. And then had one of my favorite old columns that I wrote on Mark Curtis last week. And I'll have some new podcast I know that I've gotten done and produced up and all that. So that should be coming up pretty soon. But it's a really interesting place to be. I mean, it's he started a podcast with your favorites, Jeff Jarrett and Tony Schiavone and of course Bruce Pritchard and
people who love you.
Guys all over everything. I mean, it's
a love fest. Keep going.
Stood over at the bar at the Hilton in Charlotte and have a few drinks and watch guys come by. But Conrad's a pretty amazing deal.
Oh no, he's an amazing businessman, that's for sure. Tell me, are you doing some audio at Ad Free Shows as well, or is he going to ease into that?
Yeah, and that's the next step. I ought to have some this week. I've already got it recorded and produced out, and then just trying to build back up to it. And there's an audience out there that knows me, and then there's an audience that knows me as the Greensboro Jackoff, and part of the National Enquirer of Professional Wrestling and all that stuff, and which isn't true. So hopefully people getting a chance to see, okay, this is pretty good and this is reasonable, and there's a lot of tidbits and stuff that, if you look into wrestling from the way we look at it, that's the interest of how it's put together, and not only the performances, but why and how and what happens and all that.
Brent,
so I'll ask you two, you got to be on the Roman Reigns bandwagon now. Yo, like, I want a shirt.
Since Vince did what we told him to do and turned the guy heel, sure, yeah, we're all over it. We
tell him to do that, though.
5 years ago, we were telling him to turn heel.
That wasn't what did it. It's that character. It's that story.
Oh, it's Paul Heyman too.
Not all the way of it.
It's Paul Heyman. It's him turning heel, and it was all because of circumstance, because the children's hospitals weren't open. They couldn't do the Make-A-Wish stuff. And they're like, well, fuck it. We might as well just go ahead and turn the guy heel, because he can't be like the face of the
Nowhere
WWE.
near as simple as turning him heel. It's all that. It's that manager, that tribal boss, that he's got a lot of responsibility and he's got to be ruthless. And it's, it's right out of The Godfather. It's right out of a lot. I mean, it's really well done character work. And you can't tell me that guy isn't just killing it in the acting, the big acting, and the wrestling and everything he's doing.
He's good. He's great. But also, Jey Uso is a big part of this story too. Jey Uso's helped get him over in a big way as well.
Oh yeah, I think that I really have liked the story, and I think that down the line, when Uso gets his second chance at he's got the boss that tells him to sacrifice for the greater good of the family, and all you're doing is sacrificing for the boss. But when he steps out again and gets that title shot, and then the other cousin steps out from behind The Rock and backs Uso, you're going to have something then. I really like that they've kept it strong. They didn't, and even I was listening to you guys the other day, and Bryant, and when Bryant went, why are they, that he was kind of shocked at Roman Reigns pinning two Hall of Famers at the same time. I thought that was that was really strong. That really got attention. I thought that was and they didn't do that. They didn't do the cheap way out of, I forget which one was on top of the other one, but Daniel Bryan actually pinned Edge or whatever.
Right.
They didn't do that crap. It was like, it would have been just, an embarrassment for any character in wrestling. I can't imagine the Miz pulling that one, but yeah, I think like the long-term keeping it over, and then Paul Heyman, instead of playing the mastermind, playing the guy who's a little bit scared because it could go wrong at any time. But I love the trash talking during the matches. I thought that I think Roman Reigns is, in this. I don't understand how it works, but I mean how he got it. But it's like he has his own little television show on SmackDown. That's a hell of a wrestling show and a hell of a wrestling character, and everything else in WWE is, remarkably poorly booked. So I think it's Heyman, but it doesn't have. I mean, I've never seen Heyman book at this level either. I really think it's Reigns and getting some help with Heyman, but I keep asking and I don't get a straight answer. But it's not. It doesn't seem to me to be Vince McMahon at all.
Well, I mean, they've basically done what we told them to do 5 years ago, Brian. The Island Nation, the Samoan heel team
tribe, and he went all full
said
tribal freaking team now. God,
like, I didn't tell all this. He's got a bunch of depth to it. And like, I turn him heel. Like,
and then they turn him heel, and he's the best he's ever been. He's the best he's ever been in his whole career.
I mean, that's just
the only thing they didn't do that you suggested, Britt. The only thing that they didn't do was make him wear white.
Oh, I wanted him so bad to make him shave, cut his hair real short, give him the heel, the WWE heel haircut with the shaved sides, long on the top, the MJF haircut. I want him to wear the white trunks. I wanted all that. Right? That would be like my.
Well, we got to keep you two away from the book. Like, I mean, you might be able to do better than Vince, because Vince can't keep up with what he's doing from moment to moment. So
Yes.
So since we really didn't talk about what we're going to talk about, but let's talk about the Fiend.
Oh,
About Alexa Bliss. No one wants to, since I've been back at this, and I think I get thrown off pretty much anything else. But tell me if I'm wrong here. So, Alexa Bliss is the sexy schoolgirl on the swing set, right?
This is very I think it's more
Yes.
comfortable. I think it's more comfortable to talk about what's happened to you over the past 4 months. But yeah, go ahead. That's what she is. Sure.
Yeah, I mean, I know we're going to get worse. So, like I said, this is not my fault. Tell me if it's wrong. I put my my only like hat on because you two had yours.
Yeah.
So she's out there talking that sexy baby talk that you don't see in mainstream entertainment anymore. I mean, it's been years since you've seen it because it's pretty obvious what it is that she's on the playground. Plus, the Fiend Bray Wyatt is trying to get into the mind, is trying to let me in all the time on Randy Orton, who has a certain look to him, and Randy Orton's not all that interested in Alexa Bliss. But then they have an intergender match where Alexa Bliss wins by pinning Randy Orton by sitting down on top of him.
Yeah.
Right.
Not just sitting down on top of
on his lap.
Let's
yeah.
Can we describe that a little bit better, please? Not as vague.
Okay.
Straddles him. Okay.
Straddles him.
Yeah.
To the point on national television where his real life wife goes on Twitter and she's not happy because you're not something, but he's still Randy Orton and that's his real name. And And so but she's also this, been taken over by the Fiend, but this childlike figure. And then,
hello,
get that Empty Arms Hotel.
Yeah.
Another
Bray Wyatt line 2.
Bruce is enjoying our current references. Yeah, we'll get into the Donna Fargo stuff later, but let's go through this.
So anyway, I'm not finished here. Wait a minute, no, I'm not finished here. So then they have the WrestleMania match. And you're like, and none of this makes any sense. Like, wouldn't you notice, like, if you were competing in a league with somebody else, when they started barfing black blood, wouldn't you like say, don't you want to go to the doctor? Or wouldn't you wouldn't you like ask, like, is this gonna happen to me? Or and we're not even getting there's so many parts of this are so badly booked, and it turned into this, Ken Kesey kind of electric Kool-Aid acid test thing. But anyway, so we start the match, and the match starts at WrestleMania. The match starts with the sexy schoolgirl
turning a crank.
comes out, and she's cranking.
Yeah, she's turning that crank
in the box. Now, you guys been around Greensboro, live close by,
right.
Come through and all that stuff. So I'm the official ever since Bruce Pritchard did that. The Greensboro Jack and jack off. So the Jack in the Box. So the girl grabs the crank on the Jack in the Box and starts.
She does, say that again. She does what?
She grabs the crank.
Grabs
my earphone came out.
in the Jack in the Box, which they can't call. They call. I think you guys talked about this, and everybody.
A box-like structure. It's a box-like structure
because they're, I mean, who knows why? But it's a Jack in the Box, and so a child's toy, and she cranks it until the Jack, which is the Fiend, pops. Right. Then we have a few wrestling, maneuvers back and forth and spots. Then you guys are never going to invite me back on here ever again.
Yeah, you're going to cure us of this.
So this is not my fault because everything I'm talking about is true. Everything is right.
I'd like to talk about something less uncomfortable.
In the box, right out of, and both of you are old enough to have seen this movie, right out of Sissy Spacek and Carrie, Stephen King's Carrie. All of a sudden, here's the girl, and she's covered in black menstrual blood.
Yeah.
just like the end of Carrie. I see that look, but tell me I'm wrong. Just like the end of Carrie, the prom scene in Carrie.
Yeah.
And the girl, she now she's not a child, she's a woman.
Yeah.
And because she's had her first, I can't even say it, but
yeah, their cycle.
period at the end of the sentence. And so
Well, that was pig's blood at the
so,
prom.
yeah. And and so the Fiend turns and looks at that power, and she, and gets pinned by the RKO.
Right.
And
they would have played
then whatever it was they did with this last Monday. We're doing this before Raw tonight, but whatever it is they did last Monday, where she came out and said that she wasn't with the Fiend, and you had this whole thing. But I mean, that was about as weird and crass and vulgar. And I know that, like, one of the things why I'm in the place I'm in now is that now there's certain things you can't talk about, you can't bring up,
right.
even though they're right there, right in front of your face.
Right.
Revealing all this blood, all this black blood all over her, that also he was spitting out. And where that imagery came from,
I don't know. Oh, here we go.
But like I said, maybe it's me. Tell me if I'm right or wrong. Tell me if everything.
That's why. Well, that's why we decided to rename the podcast. Like Alexa Bliss had her period. We decided to.
It's pretty much the same.
We've gone a whole other. So I think what your question was is, why is there so much stepsister content on Pornhub? And I don't know the reason for that, and I don't like it, and I'm not a fan of it, and I'm not really sure where they're going with it. And I don't think playing girl, you'll be a woman soon, as that whole thing ended, was really the way to go either. But
no, but it's all in that stuff.
Nice reference, sir.
Yeah.
It feels, it does reek of a bunch of middle-aged men trying to dabble in menstrual cycles and stuff of that nature. That's what it sounds like to me. I mean, that's what it feels like.
Also, in what used to be, one of the sexy image that no longer is, people know what that means, and it's not too cool anymore, and they're still out there doing it, and it's weird. It's
beyond weird. And I mean, but there's again, now this is the part that really bothers me is when you do go to some of these adult websites, which I never go to, it seems like some of the stuff that's being really pushed a lot is that barely legal stepsister stuff. And I'm not, again, far be it from me to draw lines morally and such, but that I'm kind of uncomfortable with that. I think, here's a 30-year-old having sex with another 30-year-old. There you go. That's pornography. Let's get it on. Why do we have to have dad tricks stepdaughter into? I don't know why we need that, but apparently I don't know if there's a market for that, but I do know that Vince McMahon can't hit it. He's not the guy to nail that market and exploit it and make money, and that's not how you do it.
Well, don't you think that we talked about this a while back about the Fiend. They just booked themselves into a corner with characters like him. They don't know where to go after a certain point. He reached his peak around the Seth Rollins feud days, and since then it's just
that didn't
gone
work.
Into
a
shit.
lot of damage to Seth Rollins. It's like,
that Seth Rollins up bad.
I mean, I think the animated Funhouse thing gets a rating, but it gets a little bit of a rating, but the guy can't sell, you can't have that character sell.
You still think it gets that big of a rating though? As it used to?
No, I don't.
Has that appeal anymore?
And and part of all this is that is McMahon and WWE have won as far as like the next 3 years. They know how much money they're going to get. They can name their profit. They can keep their expenses down. And the next move is I've been following this stuff for 30 years or what, and before that. And the overall story was what was going to happen in the end of Vince McMahon. And I think that we know the answer now, which is he's got this last television contracts with Fox and NBC Universal, and then he gets the right price for the company.
right.
for the corporation, and he sells it for billions of dollars to Disney, and that's it. And none of this really, maybe there's something there after that, but none of this really really matters. But still, it's just like, isn't there someone they're going, look, this isn't very, all this is going to get us in trouble. And and when Pornhub, and I do follow the news, and when Pornhub is out there saying that they've had to be more responsible, they're more, they're more safe, they're more responsible, you're just like shaking your head,
right.
looking at that stuff. And it's about getting, even for porn, it's about getting as close to the non-consensual line as you can, without, and still be barely legal. And that's one thing if you're doing, but if you're doing that, but if you're doing porn, but if you're a multinational billion-dollar corporation, maybe that's not the best place for it. And then Carrie was a hell of a movie and a hell of a book, and it built a story, and it got you engaged in it, and it was a shocking thing. And I know you guys were like 9 years old, but I was.
Well, it freaked me out. That the ending really freaked me out. Not the prom. The prom scene was bad enough, but the ending with her mother in the house, the whole Jesus Christ thing.
Yeah, and that was, and it was also really intelligently done, and it was on the edge it was on the edge for its time and now. And
Stephen King.
And this stuff isn't on any kind of edge. It's just kind of half-assed done.
Yeah, and that's the thing, is it's like, if you're doing it for some reason or to be edgy or whatever, but then all of a sudden you're just doing it to fill time because you're screwed up. And
I think that's where it's at now.
But that's also the thing that you were talking about with Vince, and he knows where the contract is. It's always been the Vince McMahon story, is he wants so much to be part of the elite, but he hates the elite. He wants to have a company that's a public company that's traded on the New York Stock Exchange, but then all of the bullshit that comes along with that. Yeah, it matters that you get the huge contract from 21st for SmackDown. You get all of that money, but Wall Street's always like, what's next? What's next? What's next? What's next? Where's the revenue? Where's the revenue? And he can't just keep chasing it like that. And I think that's eventually why he sells at some point.
Yeah, I think so too. I think that's the last play in the game. And then you put yourself into that. My family's in the billionaire club, and the billionaires do what they want. And one of the things that I'm reminded of with Vince is like the Washington football team or the Dallas Cowboys and the New York Knicks, where you have owners who aren't very effective. Jerry Jones is really effective at the business side, but running the football team, he's not at all. Right. But he's not going to give that up because that's his fun.
Right.
And it's about
he knows nobody's going to tell him not to do it.
Yeah,
true.
Who can?
Except for fans who hate the Dallas Cowboys, who love the Dallas Cowboys and want to see them win or whatever that is. And so, as far as that goes, the Oakland Raiders, and it's you. To me, I watch and like I'll watch tonight, and I see Drew McIntyre and Bobby Lashley, and they both do promos about why they should be Employee of the Month. They come to work early. They stay after work later.
Wow.
They've got more longevity than anybody. They've been working there for years. They're more loyal.
Wow.
They try harder. Like who should who should get the promotion instead of let's fight. And there's more with less fight, as we saw this weekend. So
if they would have given Stone Cold Steve Austin Employee of the Month plaque, he would have broken over Mr. McMahon's head. That's what would have happened. He would have smacked the shit out of him with that.
It would have played the part of the bedpan.
He never cut the type of promos we see them all do, which is I've been in the company for this many years, and I was always loyal, and I didn't go, and whatever they told me, and now it's my turn. Now it's my turn to ride the bicycle.
Holy shit.
Did
any of those cuts last week, any of those cuts surprise you?
I thought with the Roman Reigns thing, and part of it is just to say the guy's doing a hell of a job, but also I thought one of the things on the way to a Roman Reigns versus Rock retirement match would be that Joe comes out, the Samoa Joe, because Samoa Joe has
Yeah.
that natural toughness. He's Samoan, but he's not part
Yeah.
of. He doesn't have any links to the tribe, and
Right.
in real life or anything like that. And you could do what they did with Kevin Owens, which was have a good feud and then beat him in the end, or not have him win the championship. And so that one kind of surprised me. But I also have been thinking for a while, can Joe, Joe's looking to get cleared, but could he get cleared and could he wrestle anymore? I mean, he wrestled a tough style. I mean, for a long time. And then, again, sort of like the promos, the guys who do commentary, Michael Cole and the rest of them. Michael Cole is a great announcer for one person. That's for Vince. He's doing it to police Vince and the rest of them too. And so you get this strange language. You get this, there's nothing to it. And they kind of Joe wasn't like this in the beginning, but they kind of beat the life out of Joe too. It's like he's just another guy.
I was a little surprised by Peyton Royce. I thought that she had achieved the look that they wanted. She had done some bikini and bodybuilding stuff, and I thought that they were going to really do something with her. I thought Billie Kay was kind of being crafted as the Marty Jannetty after that breakup of that team, because they have to do it every time in that way. They have to have one person be the Shawn Michaels and the other be the Marty Jannetty. But I was a little surprised that they let both the Iconics go.
I was too. I was not a fan of the Iconics. I didn't like the completing the promos, completing each other's sentences, and the puns. It's just too cute. It's too cute by half. I was not a fan. And if the gimmick wasn't working that well, and then the wrestling was okay, then that was kind of a problem. But WWE's still in that part to me where they're pushing the women, the wrestlers, and there's more of a market for that. You can go more mainstream with that, but they still have the divas. They still have the women who are there basically to go through the motions of a match or get carried through a match and look good. And they need to decide to go all the way. Bianca Belair and is a great example of, someone with that personality, with that wrestling, that can do all of it. I don't know. I was not I never saw what the biggest deal was with Peyton Royce. If you're great looking and you're selling merchandise, or there's something you can look at and go, but yeah, they had their shot. Right now Raquel Gonzalez is one of the bigger ratings draws for NXT. So I think like the newer ones are there, where they're going.
Bruce also, Brian, disagrees with my inclusion of as many referees as I thought should go into the Hall of Fame.
I heard
he pared the list down a little bit for me.
What was your list, Bruce?
My list is. My list is Little Nate and Tommy Young.
Well, wait, that's it.
That's it. Yes.
I thought you had Nick Patrick. Did you have Nick Patrick?
He's done, and how effective he is at it. He belongs there. And then Tommy Young is Tommy Young. So who else?
Oh, you said Tom? Did you say Tommy Young?
I said Tommy.
Yeah, he said Tommy.
Okay, I missed that.
And Tommy Young.
Okay,
I thought you also had Nick Patrick in there. Did you have Nick Patrick in there?
I really would have Nick Patrick in there because I think he was phenomenal. He was a really good referee for a long, long time. And then, just doing the basics. Doing things right, not messing up. And then he played heel, and he played heel referee better than anybody ever did.
Sure.
Like way better than anybody ever did. And so, and he did it for long enough. He was the best referee there for years, and then he did it. But I'm also like, referee, you can be a really good referee, but a Hall of Fame referee, I'm not sure that there should be a lot of spots for that in professional wrestling.
Come on, Sonny Fargo, Bronco Lubitsch.
We had this discussion.
Sonny Fargo, no.
Britt tried to fake it past me with Sonny Fargo with what a great wrestler Sonny Fargo was. Fargo was the skinny guy who came out of the loony bin and didn't sell anything, and they would bring him in like once every 4 months in Memphis and drop.
He drew big money.
Yeah, he wasn't any but compared to, it's not, you know, I'm amazed every year. WWE Hall of Fame, like all the old wrestling fans who come to me and go, "Oh my God, Ray Stevens is not in their Hall of Fame," and it's like, it's a television show. You know, it's like, why do you think Scott Hall and Kevin Nash have been in that thing or in that thing 5 different ways? It's because they just put them on the headline. They don't care. And then it's Vince. You know, you gotta have a mid card. You gotta have mid card. You know, you gotta have a couple of women. You gotta have a couple of minorities, and you've got to have, you know, tokens, I guess would be the word, and you've got to have and you know, and you can have one, but not more than one major wrestler who died before his time.
Right. Not more than
and
one.
that was it.
True.
And that was it. And that's it. And it's like, oh my God, they got in the Hall of Fame. And now, you know, now the New York Times leads with it. But, you know, when they do a wrestling obituary, like they got Mr. Fuji. New York Times had Mr. Fuji for a wrestling obituary because he was in the WWE Hall of Fame. It's, I mean, I'm not a fan of the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and I'm, you know, and there's some things that shouldn't have a Hall of Fame, but WWE Hall of Fame is like, it's just another show on WrestleMania week. They can sell tickets to, and you can go, and that's fine. But geez, yeah.
How do you not keep Earl Hebner? How do you not get him in the Hall of Fame as a referee? How does Earl Hebner not make the cut?
Why would he make the cut? He was a good referee. Then, in the character-defining moment of his life, he didn't stand up for his friend, and he stood up for his job. And you did the WWE. To me, when we were discussing this, it was like he lied to his friend and betrayed him, you know, on live television, and he sold a lot of T-shirts doing that. I mean, that's all great, and he was a good referee. But how does that put him in the Hall of Fame when the thing he's only famous for, besides the twin Hebner, you know, the twin referees thing, is how does that put you in a Hall of Fame?
Well,
he's a good referee. There's nothing wrong with being good at your job, but everybody that's good in their job isn't in the Hall of Fame.
Quality plus longevity. And as far as his moral shortcoming, I mean, you go through the Baseball Hall of Fame with all those guys like Ty Cobb and jerks like that are in the Baseball Hall of Fame. Was Earl Hebner's moral shortcoming, was it that great?
Yeah, Ty Cobb is famous for being a great baseball player who had moral shortcomings. Earl Hebner is famous for having a big moral shortcoming that turned out to work out for Vince McMahon. I mean, which is okay, but I mean, that's not, you know, he's a good referee. That's fine. And he lasted years longer because he got hired by a company that was losing millions of dollars and year after year and kept giving him contracts, and he kept selling some T-shirts. I mean, how's that Hall of Fame? I mean, Hall of Fame should be the top, you know. I mean, it's like if there's a
okay, all right.
I mean, there's a Brad Davis Hall. Brad Davis would be in the Guilford, you know, in the Greensboro Radio Hall of Fame. But
God,
that's what Brad Krantz would be too.
So I mean, I love Little Nate. We both love Little Nate. But what qualifies him more than Hebner? I'm just in your eyes.
That's a good question.
He's been in more key WWE main events over the last year, and then he plays the role of the referee so well. He's facial expressions. He's in the right place. He's the right size. You know, he makes the wrestlers look good. He reacts to everything. He's never out of place. He's right there, and then, you know, builds the ring too, which is not something. But if I'm looking at my list of all-time referees, you know, that's him. I mean, those two. And
I'm not against him at all. I'm just wondering what the difference is, because I really think they're kind of on the same plane, to be honest. Because don't you think how many Hebner had to have had more than just the damn Montreal screw job? I mean, he was in some big matches too.
Huge matches.
Well, I mean, he was the referee and the key. He and his brother were the key in the highest rated wrestling show ever, which was that Friday night's main event with Hogan and, you know, and I remember watching that, just looking through my hands, just embarrassed as all hell. But now it's like, you know, but and Hogan yelling, "The plastic surgery, the plastic surgery, the $1 million man."
It's
So
it's a solid angle. The guy was given no choice as he goes through the ring. He's like, "You're going to do this, and this is going to be it, and then Dave's going to get the bag, and you go, and that's it." And he was given no choice in that to really.
And no time to think about it, even if he did have somewhat of a choice.
Well, he folded. He
I've
folded. He still had a choice. If the place you work for tells you, we need you to lie in this lawsuit that someone's come up against us, or you're going to we expect you to not tell the truth, that's a character defining moment. And it's going to cost you if you, it's going to cost you if you don't do what your bosses want you to do. I'm making this up, by the way, but
of course,
but still it's like, it's still, do the right thing, or, and sometimes in life you have consequences for doing the right thing. That was one of the times. And so it worked out, it was a terrible idea all through it, and the Montreal screw job. And then it worked out because of the haplessness of WCW and frankly, and Eric Bischoff and people wanted to keep Bret Hart out of Canada. And then that Steve Austin was sitting there waiting to need a foil, and McMahon, instead of being resentful and all that, played into the character that he'd been preparing to play for 20 years before that.
Well, but immediately, of course, Vince Russo came up with that finish for the screw job too. So that was, that's part of the. That's what
that guy's a genius, man.
I can't believe he came up with such a.
Oh no. He was all over that Stone Cold Steve Austin A&E biography last night.
Oh, was he? I haven't seen it yet. Oh my God, that's
no, he wasn't. No,
it wasn't. No. It was not good.
No,
bro, why wasn't I there, bro? I did all of that stuff, bro.
Yeah,
God, that kills me. So broadly,
yes.
In the last 4 months of your life, Bruce, what have you learned?
That sometimes you do the right thing and you pay for it.
Okay.
Well, that also also that the world has changed, and it's not just wrestling media, it's media, and Brad and Britt, I don't have to tell you. It's not necessarily what you actually said; it's what people heard that you said.
Right.
And you get held responsible for that. And there were some, I stand by my words. I stand by that apology. I didn't see the controversy coming from that. And then the other thing with the torch was a very separate matter. It doesn't seem like it was, but it was, and it had been coming for a long time. And that's
just kind of the straw that broke the camel's back, maybe, kind of thing.
In many ways, and it was coming, and in fact, it already kind of arrived, and so it's not the time to go through it, but I've always felt like my value as a writer and as a podcaster and whatever I did in professional wrestling, as far as was to try to get to the truth as much as I could. Mm-hmm. And there's different writing styles to do it. There's different podcasting ways to do it, and to pay tribute and do the best you can for the people that you write about by getting it right. And very much now it's getting on A&E, getting on A&E, or getting on the pre-show, or
right.
Putting stuff up, getting as many clicks as you can by putting stuff up. So I really am sorry that I hurt the Huber family. It's like, and that I really am sorry about that. That was not what I meant to do. And if you go back and read, and it's still up on Greensboro Sports, if you go back and read what I wrote, I wrote it as respectfully as I could. And I went over and over it again to do that. But it was the explosion of, this is what he meant, this is what he said,
right?
He reworded it, this is what he implied, and all that. And then you just look at what's gone on with COVID and professional wrestling and outside of professional wrestling, and I still I'll stand by what I wrote. But I got out of the way because I didn't want to, be fighting about it while this family was grieving, and that I felt. But there's still a lot, and what Wade Keller wrote and wasn't true. Okay. 2 times. And that's what I'll just say. I mean, just
specifically, what are you talking about that he wrote that wasn't accurate?
He wrote two things. Believe me, we'd had a long conversation, and a lot of it wasn't about the column, but saying that the column didn't come up to torch standards. Well, I had I'm not going to go into this too long, but
right.
A 2.5-hour conversation, come to Jesus meeting with him. And it was, and he never, what he told me was he was upset that I put it up without his permission. And I did that to get his attention about some things that were going on and that he was doing. And then and what he told me was, it was a good column. I might have changed. And this was a day and a half after everything had blown up.
Right.
And, I would have changed. I might have changed the ending. Okay. That was where the heat had already gone. And, okay, fine. But didn't reach torch standards. And then that I was terminated, it just specifically is not what happened. Okay. He didn't terminate me. I made an offer to him that he could take or he could not take, and he chose not to take it. I thought that was, but I think that having, having a come to Jesus meeting, he's not the type that takes that very well.
Right. And as you said, I mean, there'd been an evolution in that relationship, and eventually you could talk about that as well. I think one of the misperceptions is that you did this and you went off half-cocked and you just published this on the website. And that was not an unusual thing for you to do, right? To publish pieces without first running them by. You did that pretty regularly, didn't you?
And in fact, the initial story I helped put up with Wade not knowing anything because Wade would not be around. And that was, I really, there's a lot of this. And, right. and so, I thought, I'm not going to say because we've been through a lot, but it had been coming for a long time. And then I've seen his Wikipedia, which I'm sure he wrote. And, Wade is very intelligent and can rationalize anything that he does.
Right.
And can wear you out with that rationalization to the point where, I used to say it, was I felt like I was the only person in his life who ever disagreed with him or argued with him because he'd wear him out.
Right.
And so that was part of this. But this is, it's time through ad-free shows and wherever else, I'm kind of learning, like, I've got a good reputation and there's a lot of people that follow me and there's a lot of people that saw what happened. And then there's people that sort of know who I am. And then there's people that think I'm the bottom of the shoe. And I'm like, okay, it's time to bet on myself and go to work and show something. And so I was really proud of the writing I did for the WrestleMania week. And I know I've already got some podcasts ready to go, and I know they're good. And we'll see where all this goes.
I mean, and to me, that was, I mean, not to dwell in too much into this Wade stuff, but that was, to me, part of the most disappointing thing is because you guys had been down the road so much. I mean, both of you had received those death threats from Jim Cornette saying that he was going to murder you in front of your families and stuff like that, and then all of a sudden, for this to come up and he decides, well, yeah, maybe you don't need to be a part of this anymore. I mean, that to me felt kind of personally disappointing.
Well, I mean, it wasn't that he decided that. That's what I'm saying. Like, he didn't terminate me. I was really disappointed. And when he, I think that, in fact, anyway, I mean, I think he was reacting to me, getting some business things off my chest that, and they still exist, but they're still there. And he, so when he reacted like that, I went, okay, I can either get in a public spat with him while this family is, while this family and this company is grieving over this loss, and just make things worse, or I can just say, okay, here's my new terms.
Right.
My terms hadn't changed in over 10 years, and so and I had very much in the discussion, I had very much reason to do that, and so I think that that was I would have stayed, but I already had talked to Ad Free Shows about coming on. I was already that, and it was because of some frustrations that I had. So
would you?
Point, I mean, I'm going to go. I'm going to talk about this at some point. I was just
well,
like,
you should no, and you need to do it on your new.
I think what I need to do is step by step build my platform back up in a place.
No,
and this is part of it. And you guys are you guys. I've been listening to you guys for years in different platforms and places, including 100,000 watt radio stations.
Exactly. It actually happened. No, I always felt like I said that back in January. The story needs to be told on adfreeshows.com. I mean, that's where you need to do it. And Conrad has built that platform, and that's absolutely where you should do it. Would you, as you look back now, would you do anything differently?
To me, the only thing is that the timing of it, but and I wrote it about a day after the announcement came out that Brody Lee had died, and so we're in the middle of a COVID pandemic. The Florida basketball player had collapsed on the floor,
right,
and wrestling had not gone away. The other sports had gone away for a while, and wrestling had not. And there's been a lot of things going on in professional wrestling as far as major people contracting COVID virus, major people maybe contracting it or not, and there's all kinds of questions. There's more questions than I would have thought at that point. And so I felt like the first thing you do as a journalist is not, for a public figure, just go, okay, we're not going to talk about this because they don't want it talked about. Like, that's not the way the world works. That's not the way. And I would point to, and I know, Dave Meltzer is very critical of me a few days after that.
Right.
And then in the time since that has pointed out that, for example, Marvin Hagler, the
boxer,
the boxing champion, had his first COVID vaccination and then died about a week later.
Right.
And the media brought up, like, did this have something to do with it? They brought it up, and the family came back and had an answer, and it was like, it was a major figure. And Brody Lee had just been on national television and was a major. So there's been wrestlers that, there's been, there was times when WWE wasn't following protocol. There's still people close to each other, and there's still, there's all kinds of questions there. It was a real story. And so if I'd have waited 3 or 4 days before, the excellent television show that eulogized Lee, I don't know that would have been any better. It was like, this was something that needed to be brought up then. And, and it was, Wade Keller's reaction to it had nothing to do with any of those issues. Like, he never even brought that up. It's like, he couldn't even say. It's like, that was, and I think that in any other, now I think it's so odd. I always thought that people didn't understand that the way to do wrestling media was to learn it as much as you could and then put it together and be as straightforward as you could. You guys do something different. It's two fans enjoying it, and there's a lot of that, but it's not claiming to be. But I think the thing of, one of the things I contributed to the wrestling culture in the last 4 or 5 months was that can't even bring up COVID. If there's somebody missing from a wrestling brand, you can't bring up that maybe this is what's going on, even when behind the scenes, those doubts are there.
Right.
And, and as far as with any of it, and there's been plenty of people we know, Young Buck and Chris Jericho and who had, there's plenty of them. And then there's ones that we know had it, that it hasn't been announced and it hasn't been, it hasn't been there, and people missing. And so, I mean, this is a major thing. And the part to me also is, you can make that argument. Well, it's their choice.
Right.
It's your choice to, sit next to me in this, instead of, instead of keeping your distance. It's your choice to wear a mask or not. But the truth of the matter is that, and I think like this gets missed by a lot. I mean, it's just a basic fact of life, which is you can carry this virus asymptomatically and not get sick and catch it because, and it's all about the odds.
Right.
And then carry it on to people who, carry it on to someone who's within your vicinity, who then carries it on to someone in their family that's, that's at risk. And so it isn't a matter of like taking a steel chair shot to the head full force. Well, that person agreed to do it. And as bad as that is, this is, we're still in a year of, in the pandemic. And I got my second shot today, and I'm hoping, that we're seeing the end, but we were talking about this off the air, but live in a college neighborhood, and there's kids all over the place because it's springtime, and
right.
Human beings, and when they want to go have a good time. And this thing has lasted a lot longer than anybody could. So all these things are real issues, more than I was really careful about, I wanted to be respectful to the family. I was a fan of Brody Lee. What I knew about him, I liked when I've been around him. And I'm fine. It was the last thing I wanted to do. But it got to be, I noticed at first I was defending myself on Twitter, and I just thought, I noticed that it didn't matter if I said, look, this is what I said, not what you just said I said. And there's a big difference. And it got so bad that there were people harassing people close to me that had nothing to do with any of this. And, that kind of that social media bullying that was, I just want to get out of the way and then come back and do. And, if this ends up that this is the sword I fall upon, I've done the type of writing I wanted to do, and that column is part of it. And there was a reason why I didn't like that, Wade pulled it down. There was a reason why I made it available so people could judge for themselves and they could hold me responsible for what I actually said, instead of I heard this and I heard that.
But people weren't interested in that. People weren't interested in looking at what you said and then judging you for what you said. They had already made up in their minds you were going to be the bad guy, and that somehow the other part of this is that there's a group of people that think they're somehow striking a blow for the Huber family. That's the part that always gets me. They're the ones that are vindicating the Huber family, and you're not. They didn't ask you to. We had this discussion when Mark Madden got fired up in Pittsburgh when Ted Kennedy died. You're not out there. The Kopechne family did not ask you to go after Ted Kennedy and mock his memory or anything like that. You're not striking a blow for justice or anything like that.
Yeah. And I think that we see that in everything. Like now the truth is, and Lord, you do another podcast. Now the truth is, what you think the truth is, what you believe the truth is, whether there's facts to back it up, whether there's anything there. And that's with everything. And it's one thing to do it if you're doing, for example, Duke versus Carolina. If you're like, your favorite team, and you're like, you're ribbing your friends who root for their rivals. But it's another thing to do this in real life when there's real things. So, I mean, my heart, I didn't want that. I didn't want them to feel that way. And a lot of what I saw, the reaction was, he implied this, or he said this, and I was like,
Right.
I didn't say that. I didn't say that. I didn't say, I was real careful. And I was like, and really what I said at the end of the column was just, I thought that, okay, you went through this process. Now, honor his memory they've been more forthcoming. There's still, many, many questions about all of this. And we're not out of the woods. I'm one of those people just looking at things thinking we've got one more surge to go. If things go right, but I don't know from week to week. I don't know from day to day how things are going to go.
Did you ever have any direct communication with John's wife at all, and during all this?
That's another thing. I put a month ago, I put up the apology, and I know it was seen by everything. I was very careful in how I,
Sure.
That I was, and what I mean by careful is I apologized. I used the word apology. I used the word I'm sorry. And I told what I was sorry for. And I'm not a believer that, I believe you apologize because it's the right thing to do.
Right.
And I don't believe you apologize that then the person that you apologize to owes you anything, owes you and accept the apology. They don't have to. This
right.
like it's to them and all that. And so I reached out in the best ways, in the more than one way that I knew how, and never heard anything from anybody in AEW.
Right.
In that whole time. And they have every right to do that. On the other hand, they have they have responsibilities as a big group of people, to keep everybody safe the best they can, and to do what they can. But the idea that it was some sort of disrespectful thing to even bring up what I brought up, I completely disagree with that. And I think I think it's in how you do it. But I have to live with I think I do good work, and in fact I'm real proud of my work. So it's we'll see. And right now, and one of the reasons why I'm doing this show is I'm looking to go out, looking to put myself out in front of people again in different ways, and either remind them or show them that I'm not, there. But one of the things I feel like sometimes you do is you speak up when, and this is not in this case. I don't know what exactly went on here. And I don't think and when you don't know and you can't put the pieces together, you don't go, it's a conspiracy. You don't go, they did this, or they might have done this. So it's just that's not there. But, I think that in many times in professional wrestling, you speak up because it's like you said with Earl Hebner, like he felt like he felt like he had to do what he was told, and he had no choices. So sometimes you speak up and say, this is what a person's going through, and they shouldn't have to go through it. It's bad for business. It's bad for the person. And you bring that up. And right now you've got this, it's everywhere where the news media is so screwed up. And then you're just picking your brand, whether it's red or blue, whether it's AEW or WWE. It's not so much you're picking your stars as you're picking your brand, and you're loyal to the brand, and someone comes up with what that means. And there's times when I read stuff and I go, wait a minute, when was that decided? That's what this meant. Right. Like, and then, and I speak for myself. I don't speak for a ton of more than that.
I think some of the stuff you've been vindicated on, especially when it comes to the stuff that's going on in the state of Florida with Governor DeSantis and all of those things. I think those are all cogent, particularly with the McMahon's relationship and politics with with the state of Florida, and Tony Khan and his family. They've got a relationship with Governor DeSantis and some of the elected officials. And I think all of that is completely legitimate. I would never, as far as John's widow, I would never want to. I would be pretty ill-equipped to try to tell her not to feel the way that she feels. My God, she had to make end-of-life decisions on Christmas Eve. I mean, it was, but they've also been, they're also when they would. And
I want to say this too. One of the things I wanted to see happen, she did, which was, I think, a week or two later, she came out and was very forthcoming about what went on and went through everything. And I think it's just heartbreaking in the fact of what went on, but also heartbreaking in the fact that I don't know if she has answers. And that's part of what can go on with this stuff is, did he even, the doctor certainly thought he had it. They tested him and tested him and tested him and tested him. But, they, and that's part of life too, is you don't know the answers. But yeah, I mean, it's just, well, I believe that so-and-so won the election.
Yeah.
And it's like, and
Nice.
you don't agree with me, then you're wrong, even though, and it's not an evidence thing. It's I can go out and find someone who, there's just so many examples someone on the internet that'll agree with me. And I didn't have answers, and but I had, these are real issues. And yeah, I mean, if anything, it's gotten worse. And then wrestling media has never been that great, and with some shining examples to stand out away from it. But now it's just, whether it's the click on something and you read a story and it's what one tweet said without any background, and never asked the question like, okay, well, what is this?
Exactly.
The question I clicked on, where's my answer, and that kind of thing.
I think are you like me? The only show that I really have to watch every week is Dynamite. As much as I bitched about AEW, that's the show that I want to catch more than any of the other ones every week.
Yeah, I think so. And like I said, I want to see SmackDown. I want to see the Roman Reigns part of SmackDown. But my only thing with AEW is they do so many good things. They have too many things on. But they do a hell of a job with it. MJF, MJF and Tyson. To me, you could have had that could have been the highlight of 1 hour or one show. But yeah, and I think that playing things for playing the long game in storytelling, like they've done a really good job with that, and I have some trust in them. And then you look at Darby Allin, who's turning into a real wrestling star in a time where there aren't wrestling stars, and how Sting has been used to give him that underlining. And there's a lot there. I will say this: I didn't like the Bloody Women's match. I thought that was
really
no. I did.
I think it got huge reviews. I don't think I liked it as much as everybody else did.
Yeah, I think that it's I thought the story was good going into it, and that does count. And I thought the wrestling and the acting part of it was there, but when you're taking women and throwing them into thumbtacks and bleeding and all that, and I know what I heard was, well, they wanted to do it, which I was and then I just think about the women I've worked with and the women I know. If I sat them down, and the grown-up center, I sat them down and say, hey, watch this. This is a breakthrough for women in wrestling.
Right.
They would have thrown me out the window. And then it did damage their women's audience. Like it was.
But isn't that ultimately the great sin of Tony Khan is, hey, the boys wanted to do it. Hey, they wanted to do it. And there's just nobody there that really says no to anything.
I think that there's, I've never, the times that I've really thought a wrestling company was on fire and they're really doing good business and they have something going. I mean, if you look at Stone Cold Steve Austin, the mid card was okay.
Yeah.
But it was carried by Steve Austin and The Rock and
right.
The main events, and people were so excited to be there, and Undertaker, that it was easy to get over. And but I never expect to see, to see everything work all the time. And so there's some times when there's that South Philly ECW garbage match stuff and the blood match stuff that existed in wrestling before ECW, where that was what you did if you were Ian and Axl Rotten and you couldn't figure out another way to get over. And, John Moxley liking it. And I've seen some stuff where it's like, you don't need to do that. But I've loved some of the storytelling to put the Bullet Club back together again. And then some of this, the storytelling with MJF and Jericho, you knew it was coming, but when it came, it had little nuances to it and little detail work. I thought has been really well done. And then the new talent is given a real chance instead of that. But I also think if you got Matt Hardy, that's great. Matt Hardy is somebody worth having, a veteran like that. If you got Christian, that's great. But they've got about 5 or 6 of those guys, and that's both shows. I even I read this stuff where it's like, oh, all these factions, they're great, they're really over, and I'm like, they're not. There's too many.
Yeah.
There's just it's like it's like the Marx Brothers, Night of the Opera. Too many people in the room.
It's too much going on.
Yeah.
I also think people blow it when they come to ECW, and the reason a lot of that stuff hasn't aged well over the years. I mean, yes, ECW was Sabu and barbed wire, and it was New Jack coming off of 10-story buildings, but it was also Eddie Guerrero and Dean Malenko, and it was also Jerry Lynn and RVD wrestling their ass off, and it was also doing the Super Crazy doing some of those great lucha moves and shit like that. So it wasn't just blood and guts and gore. Obviously, that's going to get the headlines because that's the heavy metal of the thing. But it was also there was some stuff in there that you can enjoy as a traditional wrestling fan as well.
Yeah, they had some of that, and then also it was a time where corporate wrestling the two companies weren't doing a good job,
right? And
they were stuck in this kind of corporate miasma, and then you had something else going. No, we've got the energy. We're Studio 54. We're the music. We're all this, and you can't. It'd be really tough to recreate that. I think there's time in wrestling to use blood, but if you're using it too often, it becomes, how did he get bloody, instead of, oh my God, having a fight. And I'm like that with chair shots and a lot of and thumbtacks. There's no excuse for. There's not. Have you ever seen a fight where someone took out a bag of thumbtacks in the middle of it, poured it on the floor, and then threw the other guy on it? No, you haven't.
I've never seen a fight where they ran the ropes either. But I mean, you
that's
have to.
Cool. But running the rope, running the ropes, allows you to tend to fly into the guy. And the truth about professional wrestling is, it's not a realistic fight. None of it is, except for just slugging somebody. But that is. There's degradations with that, and it's okay. Now we're going to get there's a niche audience for blood, but there's also an audience that gets turned off by it, and that's and when you have too much blood in professional wrestling, usually that means you've got a promotion that's going to end up out of business.
But those thumbtacks helped get Randy Orton over. And I remember you writing that specifically, that Mick Foley match where he does the thumbtack thing. That was one of the pieces of helping to get Randy Orton over in a big, big way.
Well, I appreciate people that memorize every single thing that I've written. And that was one of the things that, I didn't write that. But it is one of those things where, when you write every week for years and years, it's like, I remember Statmark, who bringing up, hey, you remember when you wrote this when Kurt Angle and Bret Hart had that great match, and you said that Roddy Piper and not Vincent, but Roddy Piper and Virgil had Roddy Piper, Virgil, and Ted DiBiase had a better match on the show. And I'm like, yeah, I did say that 25 years ago. And since I wrote it, it clearly is right. I'm just like, God, like you can put through that stuff,
See, you were worried this was going to be uncomfortable. You really enjoyed yourself tonight, didn't you?
I always enjoyed talking to you guys.
So you were able to unburden yourself, and it wasn't at all that painful. Mitchell Wright on Twitter is how you follow Bruce Mitchell. Adfreeshows.com. You can sign up right now, and Bruce and his
$9 tier.
That's amazing. And you get it's Jerry Jarrett and Kurt Angle, and it's Bruce Pritchard, and it's Jim Ross, and it's Eric Bischoff, and it's amazing content all the time. And that stupid Cassio kid guy. Have you met Cassio yet, by the way?
I have. I've been on the show. Yeah, I have.
I understand he's slimming down.
Yeah.
I want my Cassio a little fatter. I think that's what we need, him a little fatter. We don't need him to slim down so much.
He's that Cassio kid, if I'm not mistaken. And then of course the Bojangles champ.
Oh, he's still, yeah. Now I've definitely have met him. He's annoying as piss. Is it?
Yeah.
Are you?
I'm
Are you gonna be?
told you about hanging out with the guy from Howard Stern through Conrad a few months ago.
Which guy from Howard Stern?
The guy from Howard Stern that lives in Alabama.
I don't know that guy. I was never.
Yeah.
I
Which
was never.
kind of mine. I mean, I just sat there and listened, and it was like,
I've always gone the other way on that Stern thing. I just don't understand the people that decry him as some sort of comic genius and all that stuff. I've never, and I don't, it's not that I thought that he was so rude and awful and, insensitive and all this other shit. I knew who did the act originally. There was a guy named Steve Dahl in Chicago did the act originally. I thought he did it way better. I give Stern credit for, building a national audience, but I just never thought he was all that great. He's a really good interviewer, but I never thought he was this comic genius he's being portrayed as in these times.
Well, I lived up in Delaware, and I accidentally, I literally was God, I shouldn't tell us, in a Chevette driving somewhere on AM radio trying to find something to listen to, and I got WNBC, and I was like, is this a joke or not? At first, I was like, professional thing I ever heard, but then I was listening to some of what was on that movie Private Parts when it actually happened and all that. And I loved the guy, but because I'll never forget driving from Durham to Delaware one Thanksgiving and listening to like a 6-hour shift that he did where he basically called up another radio station in the New York market and pitched his career to them. It was all that pig vomit stuff and all that. And I thought, it was like, if you got the joke, it was hilarious, but also, and now like this guy who's turned into exactly what he either the work was he was rebelling against it, or I think he was back in those days. Right. And I remember listening when he told Dime Imus, "What's one drink?" He's like, they're together, they hate each other, and they're trying to play nice. And I'm listening. Come on, you can have one drink. And
that's the part of the business that I miss is the people trying to do stuff against each other. Nobody ever really competes anymore. That was to me that was fun. It was also kind of childish, and it never really went anywhere. But it was kind of fun to do that stuff back in the day.
I love what you can do with technology and music and shuffling and finding things, and I appreciate how much cheaper it is, and that I can have in my hand, a telephone that has every album I ever wanted to have in my life when I was really, but I also I miss DJs.
But you also know that it's really bad for music, and I love Spotify.
Oh, I know, yeah.
And I love Spotify more than I've always said that if I had to drop Netflix or Spotify, I would drop Netflix. But I know it's very bad for business. I know it's bad I know that like Taylor Swift's making a lot of money, Ariana Grande's making a shit ton of money. Everybody else is dying. I get that, but I love my Spotify, and I don't know how to reconcile those things in my mind. You know what I'm saying?
Well, I mean, I know. I mean, I'm just like looking at it going, I never would have built in those album crates what I've got now and be able to manipulate it around. But I also know people aren't getting paid, and that's I don't know, I know I'm family friends with Big Something, and I know, they're a jam band that makes a living at it, and they have to, before COVID, what they had to do was tour everywhere, and there wasn't a way to break through because there's just nothing. There's nothing there. It's amazing the things that, including porn, that have died. The radio and music, and it's I think I've shared this with you guys. My theory on step brothers and sisters and all that is just laziness. It's not even the, it's just, okay, they're going to be living in the same house. So you don't have to do anything else, but it's not even, the,
it's like you can't even go out and try to get,
it's like, you can't even get on the phone and call the pizza the pizza delivery and have it show up or something. And like, you got to, you can't have, and it's like wrestling in the sense of there are no, Jenna Jameson was the last porn star.
Probably.
There's nobody that drives. There's no porn star that drives it. No. And now, right now, that you can't really point at anybody who really drives professional wrestling business.
No,
it's the brand, and it's the people that watch out of habit and watch because they're in. It's a great market for what we do, but it's not as far as the rest of people. It's really hard to sit somebody down and go, "Hey, you should watch this wrestling," because how do you explain what the story is? Well, for 17 years, I tried to be a good wrestler. I tried to be the champion, and they wouldn't let me. Like, huh? What?
That's not going to work.
Yeah.
Any other final questions or comments from you, Bryant?
No, everything. I just like the way how we began with porn and ended with porn.
Ended with porn. It's really a porn sandwich.
Just another show here.
So it's a porn sandwich. We'll get back into the Donna Fargo talk next week, Bruce.
Ah, yes.
Yeah.
More
Happiest girl in the whole USA. Shine on me, sunshine.
Bryant is available on Twitter and Instagram at Bry Sports, BRY Sports. He's available on TikTok at Stanley Jackson 23. I am on Twitter at Britt Whitmire. The show is on Twitter at KDVic Alive. I got to remember all these things. On Instagram, I'm at BDub4Reels, BDUB, number 4 REELZ. As we talked about, Bruce is on Twitter at Mitchell Wright. And if you want to support what we do, you can check out our Amazon store, which is KDVic.com. KDVic.com. Thank you, Bruce. Until next time, we'll see you ringside.